So last summer, I think it was, I was on YouTube and there was a notification. One of my favourite photographers, a guy called Sean Tucker, had released a new video. It's titled YouTube, Straight Talk for People Thinking of Starting a Channel. Now, my channel is nearly 10 years old, but because of the quality of his content, I decided to click onto that video. And whilst watching it, I suddenly realised that I think it's really important that a concept like that video is taken and then applied in the vegetable gardening world. So this video is for those of you who are just at the start of your vegetable growing journey, and I really hope it helps. Let's be honest, if you're new to gardening, you're probably full and brimming with motivation and inspiration. You've probably bought loads of gardening books, watched loads of inspirational videos, perhaps a few of the recent ones here on this channel, and perhaps you've even gone out and bought loads of seeds. You've seen countless examples of gardens all over the world brimming with food abundance, and you want to experience the same. Now in today's world, it's all too easy to get caught in that trap of seeing examples of these perfect gardens, and it can become really frustrating when something doesn't go to plan with us, but everyone else seems to be enjoying great success. I fear and worry that there isn't enough grounding or realism given to new gardeners to really help nurture, especially at the very start of their journey of growing food. I am really not trying to put a dampener on anyone's spirits, especially if you're aspiring to grow some food. I just think that it's really important that you hear this honest and frank chat, so you are armed with everything you need to have a much more successful growing season. See, nothing upsets me more, and this is an all too common story, than actually seeing someone who is totally motivated, is totally energized to go out and grow food, only to throw in the towel a month or two later. New growers, unfortunately, run the danger, because of seeing so many of these perfect examples on social media, of trying to build a skyscraper before laying the foundation. And a good old cliche that will fit in well here is Rome wasn't built in a day. Yes, it's great to see all of these amazing gardens on YouTube, which we can draw inspiration from and generate ideas for our own spaces. But very often for aspiring vegetable gardeners, seeing all of these countless examples and then not experiencing the same right from the get-go is actually a hidden passion killer. And I really want to try and set this straight. It is totally okay and acceptable for a new gardener to kind of set their eyes and dream of this beautiful, pristine garden, and everyone has a right to dream that. It's just about the process and journey of reaching that dream. You see, when we set ourselves a goal or a challenge, a really ambitious one, in a field that we don't actually know or understand much about right at the beginning, we run the risk of two things happening. The first is overwhelm, which either happens right at the start, where you just don't know how to begin, or soon after, when you've bitten off more than you can chew. Sorry about another cliche. And then you suddenly freeze up. And the second thing that happens is often a result of overwhelm is that feeling of frustration, which also happens because you suddenly realise that you don't really know what to do, and you feel stuck and you feel lost, and you've had all of this excitement, and then suddenly you're like, why am I experiencing these emotions? If right now you want to create your vegetable garden of your dreams, you can absolutely get it, but you have to create that strong foundation first. And that strong foundation will make the whole process so much easier, and I argue more importantly, so much more enjoyable to reaching those dreams that you have. One of the wonderful things about growing food is that, I swear to you, every single day you learn new things, and I love that. Because it's a journey, it's a process. And another thing is that being in a garden and being present allows you to really relish every single moment, which makes those harvests even more of a joy and a celebration. Don't just grow for the harvest, grow for the experience. Gardening for me is an opportunity for creative expression, to be able to experiment and to kind of be able to have some time to myself. You will experience failures, I promise you. And in fact, I want you to experience failures, not because I'm a sour person at all, but because experiencing failures is going to lead to a lot more success. And that understanding of coping with failure means that you're not going to be one of the gardeners who don't understand how to do this and then throw in the towel a month or two into it. In order to have a sustainable, long-term, joyful gardening experience, you have to learn to cope with failures. I honestly believe that failures is one of the tricks to fast track your experience as a gardener, because you learn so much more from a failure than a success. I know that this feels like such a life cliche, but there's real truth to this when it comes to growing food. Failure is what makes us gardeners resilient, and resilience is one of the core fundamentals to being able to create a garden of our dreams. In my opinion, every new gardener needs to understand two critical points. The first is gardening is patience. Gardening requires patience. And the second is gardening is nature. Gardening is part of nature. We could argue that patience is something that we're not really used to, and in a way it's something I'm having to relearn, and I'm very grateful for being a gardener because it helps keep my patience in check. And in a world where everything is so instant, where you make one slight adjustment or tweak and you see a result straight away, in gardening you don't get that instant feedback. You've got to wait weeks or potentially months to see a result from that tweak so long ago, and that can be really difficult. Look, I am impatient enough waiting for a pancake to cook, but the prospect of waiting potentially months to harvest a crop is almost alien. But the great thing about gardening is we can drown out this noise of impatience by surrounding ourselves with lots of different crops to grow, tend to and harvest at the same time. A garden is this kind of ever-evolving organism, this kind of micro-ecosystem that changes every single day, which helps keep you grounded and it helps keep you on your toes, and it also helps you deal with things that don't go to plan. I could go on all day about what to do if failure or something doesn't go to plan in the garden, but the most basic thing that I can tell you is just to not beat yourself up about it and just see it as part of the process. I myself still continue on a monthly basis experience failure as a gardener, and as soon as you realise that that is just a part of it and that you've got so many successes to focus on instead of the failures, it's a lot easier. But the hardest part is kind of jumping over that hurdle right at the beginning. This whole chat links in to the second critical point that new gardeners need to understand, and that's the fact that gardening is nature. In a garden you have to take nature into account, which means weather and pests and diseases. But when done right, overall nature is actually going to be one of the key gardeners to help you in your own garden, because as your understanding grows, nature will show you what the opportunities are in your specific garden, and as time progresses, nature can also offer you that vital protection against either severe weather, but perhaps more crucially for us gardeners, offer us protection and prevention against things like pests and diseases. One of the big quotes in the permaculture world, and permaculture is simply this almost thinking system which is inspired by nature, and how can we look at what works well in nature and apply it in our own gardens or our own lives for it to be as sustaining as possible. One of the key quotes there is that don't work against nature, work with nature, because when you work with nature, everything suddenly becomes so much easier and also a lot less expensive. As a gardener, you must see yourself as a shepherd of your land. You look after it, you nurture it, you protect it. But you should also see yourself as a student, because there's always constantly going to be new things that you can learn and try out and experiment with. And you can also see yourself as almost this student to nature or to your local climate. For example, if you transplant a tomato seedling and then it gets caught by a frost, nature has taught you how to be more cautious when planting out or when deciding to plant out a tomato plant. Or perhaps you have some lettuce and they've been decimated by slugs. Well, nature has taught you that there's an imbalance, there's too many slugs in your area. And also, if something like a row of seeds never germinates, nature has taught you that the conditions weren't right for them. This constant kind of successes and then trial and errors will give you these sticking points on which you can research, build upon, and then achieve from. And this is an integral part of being a gardener. As an organic gardener, I take great pride in banning any kind of chemicals from entering this garden. And it's almost as if I've put this boundary or this force field around the perimeter of the garden, banning anything like that from entering. Perhaps the most unexpected but most important bit of information that I can give to any new gardener is to not give in to these kind of chemical products, these unnatural products that the horticulture industry so loves to almost force people into saying that these are the only options of solving problems. Hey, are you not getting good tomato results? Then buy a supercharged tomato feed. Oh, are your lettuces getting munched by slugs? Then buy a slug-killing pellets. Unfortunately, when you opt for these quick fixes and these chemical options, you're just signing yourself onto this contract of dependence upon these chemical fertilizers, pesticides, whatever, that you then become increasingly dependent and reliant on as a gardener. And surely, if you're starting something, you don't want to be dependent on always having to buy in these things which you don't know how they get made, to put onto the soil that you then eat your food from. There's kind of this vicious cycle. The more inorganic things that you use that can be so cheaply bought from the garden centre makes you even more dependent, and so you need to get more and more and more. It's just not in a fun place to be, and it just totally isn't needed. I don't want you to have to experience that. This garden has always been organic, and just by watching these videos you'll be able to see how well that works, and you can experience the same. What you have to understand as a new gardener is that the health of your soil is the key thing you need to focus on, because the health of your soil has a direct impact on the health of the plants. It's like that good old cliche, and I'm full of cliches today, but apologies about that, but you are what you eat. And chances are, if your plants are going to be growing in healthy soil, your plants are then going to be healthy as a result. A healthy soil is a living soil. It is full of billions of microscopic microorganisms and fungi that are working so hard to make nutrients plant available and to also help fight off pests and disease issues. But adding chemical and inorganic products to your ground and to your plants effectively really damages and destroys the soil health. And what it means is that it makes your plants more vulnerable to pests and diseases, and it also makes your soil less effective at making nutrients plants available, which then means, oh hey, we've got to go to the garden centre and we've got to buy tomato feed because we're not getting the nutrients that the biology is naturally giving to the plants themselves. And you can see how this works. You then suddenly become dependent, and it can get increasingly hard to then get out of. So the best thing to do is just ignore all the products that you can get in a garden centre and just focus on organic permaculture, no-dig, regenerative growing methods, which end up being a lot cheaper because you're just using materials that are either local to you or are really low-cost but natural alternatives and solutions that are going to promote soil health and promote a healthy garden. The horticulture industry does this very clever job of saying that these quick fixes or these products will solve all of your problems, but from all of the research that I've been doing, it's only going to lead to more problems further down the line. And if you're a new gardener watching this, I want you to not worry about that. There's no need to worry about it. And it's just a lot more fun not needing to be dependent on external sources to grow your own food. And also, if you're wanting to start to grow your own food, there's going to be a part of you that doesn't want to become kind of dependent on these industries and corporations for you to just grow some food in your allotment or your backyard. All you need to do is to just understand that the soil is very much like a human immune system. So what happens if you feed yourself the wrong things? It weakens your immune system. What happens when you have a weakened immune system? Well, we all know that answer, and the same thing applies to the soil. If we look after the soil and we respect it, and we put the right things on the soil, then your plants are going to have a positive result from that. The good news is that it's very easy to create a healthy soil from the get-go, and as time progresses, your soil is naturally going to improve. So as you go into kind of year 2, year 3, year 4, you're going to see your garden become even more resilient and even more prepared and even more abundant because the soil is improving. The success of your gardening depends on the success of your soil, and all of these shiny products that you see like covering kind of garden centre or plant centre shelves are, in my opinion, perhaps some people might argue is a controversial opinion, but I honestly think that these are quite a scam, and they're also really damaging and totally unnecessary. So here are some very quick tips to help you get started to ensure that you're on the right path and the simple path to creating a really healthy soil and thus in turn creating a healthy garden. The first tip is a very simple one. Don't dig your soil. No dig is a wonderful way of growing food because when you dig the soil, you're damaging it and you're disrupting it. You're also releasing carbon, and carbon is essential because it's a food source for so many of those microorganisms which then digest organic matter in the soil to then make nutrients plants available. It's this beautiful symbiotic relationship that happens. So if you follow no-dig methods, all you're doing is taking inspiration from nature. So if you think of a forest, the leaves fall down and they apply a mulch to the surface, and then this breaks down and the nutrients slowly go in. And you apply the same principle here in gardening. Instead of digging in compost or manure, you're just applying a layer of compost over the surface of the soil, and that is all you need to do. So to find out more about no-dig gardening, all of my videos here on this channel, apart from ones that are quite a few years old, are all 100% no-dig. I'd also recommend you follow Liz Zorab and also Charles Dowding, of course, to find out more about this really simple method of growing food. The second tip aligns with no-dig, and that's to have this rough target of applying on an annual basis at least a 2 to 3 centimetre layer of well broken down compost on every surface, whether it's on your raised beds after you've harvested or just before a new growing season. That simple rule of thumb of just applying a 2 to 3 centimetre layer of compost is easy to remember, and it's easy to do. The third tip is when you're removing old plants, cut them at the base so you leave the roots in the ground. The roots stay in the ground, they help promote that biological life, and you can put whatever you cut above the ground onto the compost bin. This leads into the fourth tip, which is to learn how to make compost. I've done a couple of videos. One is how to make compost if you've never made compost before. Another one is the art of lazy composting, and I recommend you watch those. You see, the best time to make compost was 6 months ago, so the best thing is to get going now because compost is a really good long-term resource. There are a few ways of going about improving your soil and your plants, short-term fixes that are organic and totally natural that I'm going to be exploring and sharing on this channel over the coming months and years, but compost is your single biggest asset, so get making compost. And the fifth tip is to understand the importance of diversity. So that's by growing lots of different things in a smaller space, by using growing methods like companion planting or intercropping or successional planting or polycultures. Yes, these sound like lots of different things, but they're all very simple. And to get started, there'll be a single video to watch down below to help you understand that. When you're at the very start of your garden journey, it's just important to try not to take on too much in one go. You want to focus on a handful of crops to begin with, and then begin as the season progresses to ease in to potentially growing other crops as well. Things like salads, potatoes, beans, peas, herbs, these are all really easy to get started with, and the great thing is you can also grow these in containers as well. By growing a few different things to begin with, what you do is you suddenly learn a lot of the really important skills that can then be transferred onto growing other crops. For example, growing a row of beetroot is not very much different to growing a row of radish. So when you focus on a few different crops, you learn all of the key skills that you can then apply later on. So what I'd recommend is perhaps look at starting 4 to 5 different things over March and April. Let some of these grow. By May or June, you'll start harvesting, say, radish and salads. And then perhaps in June, start off a load of other crops to then see you through the rest of the growing season. And it's going to be really fun for you as time progresses to see how your own style develops and see what you really enjoy doing, because no two gardens are going to be the same. No two gardeners are the same. And I think that's quite a wonderful thing. So providing that you know the importance of soil health, the understanding that gardening requires patience and gardening is nature, there's nothing stopping you from starting your journey to create the garden of your dreams. And if at any point you feel a loss of inspiration or motivation, or you feel really stuck, then you can either use social media sites. Lots of Facebook groups are really encouraging, so many gardening groups there where you can ask for questions or advice. Or you can even try send me an Instagram message and I'll do my best to get back to you to help you work through that so you can come out the other side. But gardening is a really supportive community, and especially on YouTube, I think very quickly you'll see that. Even if you have a question, you can put it down in the comments. Chances are other people will offer their advice to support you. So I just want to wish you the absolute best of luck on your journey, and I hope that this kind of honest talk and just giving you what I have learnt over probably 17, 18 years, considering if I started gardening at the age of 3, I'm 22 now, and I'm hoping that what I've learnt through that, through a very turbulent way of growing food, will help you on your journey. So good luck, and I wish you all the best success.